Most businesses are built to produce income for the owner, not to be transferable. And that's a big mistake that many business owners make.
We associate top line revenue and bottom line net in our pocket. We assume that if we're doing that, the business is more and more valuable. Not necessarily.
Build it like you sell it, even if you never do, even if that's not your goal right now. Because a business that can be sold for top dollar is one that is going to create freedom for you. When you build for value, you get a better business today and a better outcome for later. Hey there, entrepreneur, and welcome back to the Scale to Sell podcast, the business owners podcast designed to help you create transferable value, create more freedom in your business, life and personal, and at the same time, create exit options so you can exit on your terms. This is episode number 65, Revenue versus Enterprise Value, the shift that changes your business, and at some point, if you want it to, your exit. So last time we were talking about some of the key takeaways that we got to learn from other certified exit planning advisors from all kinds of different disciplines and some cases across the globe recently at a conference that we were at. And we mentioned last time that this episode is going to be focused on enterprise value, the importance of the shift from focusing on things like just revenue or just the income that you might be making to really what is the business worth without you. And Steve, we've talked about this a lot because we've talked about how good exit planning is really good business strategy. And so the things that are going to help you grow are the things that are going to help the right way are going to help you when it's creating more exit options and things like that. But when the business is your largest asset, it really needs to be managed the right way if you're going to grow it, protect that value, and then at some point harvest it for what it's worth.
You know, I use an example as a financial advisor. Somebody come in and they are talking about retirement. And when you ask them how much they've got in their 401k or IRA, they go, I don't know. Or I think, right? Well, I think is an I don't know in my guess. It's a guess. So my point there is that if 80 to 90% of you, the business owner's net worth is tied up in the value of their business, and you haven't had the business valuated in maybe ever, or maybe once, but it was a few years or 5 years ago, how do you know? How do you know? Well, my revenue is up. You know, as a business owner, we'll talk about that. Most of us focus on, especially in the early years, just getting the business up, getting it going where we can make a livable, income. And then if we do it right, we're hitting a stride. We're maybe making more money than we've ever made. And we associate top line revenue and bottom line net in our pocket. We assume that if we're doing that, the business is more and more valuable. Not necessarily.
When we focus on enterprise value, and we're going to get into the differences between the two in just a second, but really the goal is to build a transferable, valuable business that creates freedom now and optionality later. And one of the stories that stuck out to us, a client example that was shared, redacting for personal information and things like that, was to me striking and hits exactly what we're trying to discuss here. The owner was in a situation where they were hoping to be able to exit the business in the next few years. And in her mind, she thought the business was worth $9 million because that was the revenue number for the business. And so she's thinking, okay, multiple in my head times the 9 million in revenue gets me, close to, if not right at, what she was going to need in order to exit, based on the numbers that they had run of what that needed to look like. The shock came when she discovered that the business was really only worth about 2, maybe 2.5 million, because so much of the business's revenue was based on her own production. And that if she wasn't there, she's not a part of the company going forward because she's selling, exiting, trying to move on to the next thing, that what she expected to be an easy conversation turned into oh no, like, what am I going to do? How am I supposed to grow this business to get to the point where I can have that lifestyle, right? They started off the conversation, how much money do you need to maintain your lifestyle? And she said $500,000 a year, right? Was her answer. And then as she found out that the business was not worth quite what she thought it was, her immediate reaction was, well, I'll just say that I need less than that. I only need 150,000. I only need, whatever it was. And what was remarkable to me, and you had kind of a similar takeaway as we were talking about it later, is they said, okay, here's what you actually need to actually sell the business for. Understanding taxes and all of that, we can, have that discussion with our tax planning team later, get you a hopefully better position than what they were estimating. But the point being, they said, okay, here's what you need to do. Here are the levers in your business that you need to pull in order to grow the enterprise value, get it to where you need in that 5-year time frame that you're looking to exit. And she was actually able to see kind of that game plan, that roadmap of, okay, here's the specific steps I need to take in order to do this. And it gave her hope in a time when she was thinking the worst about what was going to happen related to her business and her personal and financial life.
I think the enterprise value had to be $28 million somewhere, $28 million.
To harvest what she was going to need to keep that lifestyle.
How am I going to do that?
Yeah.
Well, she couldn't do it by herself. That's why once she had a true value, it's not just about your top line, bottom line numbers. It's about the systems and people and processes, contracts, diversified, reoccurring revenue. There's so many things that the value comes on. And again, if she's taken out, as many owners are, the business is worth less money. But then that's important, not just to get a true valuation, but then offer the information on an ongoing basis, make it a value, and then she could see it on a monthly, quarterly basis, and finally got her on track. And then she saw it after a period of time. Hey, I can hit that number.
Yeah.
I think you become hopeless in many cases. If you had to do it yourself and you go, hey, I've worked this hard to get it to this number. What's the likelihood the next 5 years I'm going to get it to this number? Well, you're right. By yourself, you might be right, but she's kind of got a board of directors right now, some consultants and some people that can help drive that value, not just drive top line, bottom line, but again, drive that value.
Yeah, we'll talk about that role of the value advisor here in just a minute. But, revenue is what you make, and the enterprise value, like we said, is what the business is worth without you. And so, for the old approach, the focusing on revenue, focusing on the top line number, things like that, owners are chasing after those things, and they think that if they've got, like she did, $9 million in revenue, okay, so here's what my business is really worth, right? This is where it breaks. Income is often owner dependent, like it was in her case. You have growth without structure. You don't really know where to focus on. So more chaos and more risk, that just lowers the value. That doesn't necessarily increase it. And no alignment with long-term wealth. You don't have a plan for where you're going, how to get there, and what those steps are going to look like for the life that you're trying to create. Just like we talked about the 3 legs of the stool in the last episode, in episode 64. Most businesses are built to produce income for the owner, not to be transferable. And that's a big mistake that many business owners make.
Even if she were to sell it for $9 million, and then if she didn't have a tax planning team, she's netting $7 million after she pays fees, and she's netting $7 million. Well, $7 million, assuming that she's like most owners, has 10% in other assets. So let's say she has another $1 million. So as a business net 7, she got $8 million. Is she going to be able to make $500,000 off even an $8 million portfolio? Maybe. But anyway, it wasn't worth that much, right? It was worth a lot less. And that's true of most business owners. Think their baby is the prettiest. It's the smartest, as we talk about and relate to our kids or grandkids. We think our kids, especially our grandkids, maybe not our kids, but our grandkids. Adam's my youngest son. So I throw that out there.
It's okay. Your grandkids are adorable. So that's
they
fine.
are. So, but the same with the business. Everybody thinks if they hear a number, somebody sold it, they think their business is worth X too.
That's why I love not the book that I have with me today, because I'm going to share something later on in the episode, but Justin Goodbread, who's SEPA as well. He wrote the book, Your Baby's Ugly.
It's true.
It's talking about the business. I promise. It's not talking about your children. But the idea of, sometimes we have rose colored glasses, or we look at things in the most favorable light possible because of how much work we've put into it. And we would like to think that some of those things are true, but what income focused owners often experience are the list here: lower multiples, right? Because it's not going to be best in class if it's so dependent on you that you don't have the systems, the teams, the leadership structure, all of those things in place to be able to do it. Limited buyer pool, because you're not going to have as many people looking at that and driving up the power of multiple offers, like Scott Bushke said in the previous episodes. Burnout, right? Because again, if it's dependent on you and you're just pushing to drive your income, and not focus on the overall enterprise value of the business, that's where we see a lot of those situations happen. And then having a wealth gap at exit. That's what we're talking about here with this client example of this lady who thought her business was worth one thing, needed something way more than that in order to close the difference between the assets that she needed in order to make that exit and what her business was actually worth to close that wealth gap.
Value gap, wealth gap. What do I need to harvest out of this business in order to live my best life? And even if you don't plan to exit, these strategies will build value and allow you to have what we talked about before, the freedom time. So even the freedom point, even if you're not there, just allow you to take more time off.
Yep.
Many of you owners don't want to exit your business, but health, death, disagreement, divorce, AI, something's going to mess this
Disrupt
business
things,
up and fully disrupt it. So, you want to make sure it's healthy and can run without you, even if you don't decide to exit.
Well, and this is one of those points. Two businesses can make the exact same money and be worth completely different amounts.
100%.
And business owners often don't recognize that as the case, but it is interesting to look at the differences between the multiples and things that a best in class business can get and one that's average, below average, or barely sellable because it's so dependent on the owner. It can be very different based on how things are structured, what systems are in play. All of those things can be either really good for you or it can be really costly.
You can even have a business that's doing greater than you, and your business is doing less sales than them, but you can demand a higher multiple because you have these things in place.
It's true. So again, this is what we're talking about here, the shift to enterprise value, getting away from viewing income as the determining factor of what your business is worth and understanding that it should be based on the value of the business. And again, there's a number of things that change when you make that shift to enterprise value, going from an operator, someone who's constantly in the business, has to be involved in order for decisions to be made, sales to get done, business relationships to continue, whatever the case may be, to a true owner of an asset, from hustle to creating systems, from, things like one-time sales to actually having systems to create recurring revenue. So you're not always chasing new leads for just those one-time sales. And from control to a transferable asset, having leadership in place to be able to actually handle these things outside of you it's a game changer when it comes to what it means for you and your business in the work that you can do if you want to, but don't have to do if you didn't.
I would say, a number of things here. Value, have it measured. And we have teams of people that can do it in 15 minutes. You could get at least a good basic understanding of understanding of where you're at right now. And you should have that done at least once a year. Right? A true done by somebody that knows these things and not somebody that guesses at things or something that you read out of an industry magazine or you talk to a buddy that's in the same industry. But building the value, that will build wealth. Your bottom line, you're successful when you start making hundreds of thousands, maybe millions or more. but it can all collapse like a house of cards, no doubt.
Build it like you'll sell it. That's we recently recorded that episode. I'm sure we'll link it in the show notes. Build it like you sell it, even if you never do, even if that's not your goal right now, because a business that can be sold for top dollar is one that is going to create freedom for you. When you build for value, you get a better business today and a better outcome for later.
It will build your top line and bottom line. You really want to build your top and bottom lines, build value.
I don't normally read from a book on the podcast, but Walking to Destiny by Chris Snyder is kind of like the handbook for certified exit planning advisors. Well, it's literally the textbook to become certified. But he talks in here, like going through all the research, all the case studies, all of the examples of business owners. And he talks about this in page 170 of the book. It says, your one goal, value. Can you recall a time in your life when you were focusing on so many things at once, you got all twisted up and ended up doing none of them well? Value creators focus on one thing, value, and make it their one goal, understanding that focusing on value drives all other positive outcomes, including more sales and income. They don't have to choose between benefits today or benefits in the future. They have both.
That nails it. Right?
Nailed it. Good job, Chris Snyder.
Know your value, grow your value, protect your value.
And that's why we're talking about value advisors, right? So in the example that we gave at the beginning of the podcast, they laid out for her, the value advisors there laid out a list of the key drivers in her business that would make her more of a best-in-class situation where she was able to grow the value of the business to the place that she needed. Instead of, I think it was going to be, if she continued at her normal growth rate, it was going to be north of like 12 or so years, maybe, if she would get to that point of being able to reach that 28 some million or whatever it was, in just about 5 years. So less than half the time. And probably a more structured way to get her what she was really needing for that business. We're able to lay out the specific things that she needed to do in order to get the valuation of the business that she was needing, and provided that structure, that accountability, the focus on value that she needed in order to get to that particular place. And to me, that was a powerful illustration of what a value advisor does in pointing out blind spots and creating clarity about what to do next.
Many people have a financial advisor like me to help you grow your portfolio, right? If your business is your largest asset, don't you think you need to have a value advisor to increase the value of your business? It's like having a board of directors. And you can use them short term if you wanted to, but most of these people that start bringing these people on, they become a true part of that board of directors, and they're looking for guidance, because sometimes if we're involved in the business, we're in the middle of it. Day-to-day operations, we're dealing with employees, client situations. Maybe you got a situation where equipment or a contract with a large client is bogging you down, and it's all you can do is get through your day. You can't step back, take a breath, and have somebody from the outside look at your business and bring some insight that you don't just see because you're in the middle of it all the time.
Absolutely. The blind spots are there. You don't know the current value. You don't know the value drivers, the specific things that you should be doing in order to drive that value forward. And you don't have a roadmap for what to do, in what order, how to do it. And that's where the clarity comes from, when you have the right team of people behind you that have been there, done that. They know what to do, and they've done it themselves. Which is an important point in all of that too. You need someone helping you grow the value of your largest asset, your business.
Remember, only 20 to 30% of businesses successfully sell. Out of that, the number is even much lower than that people are completely satisfied with an exit. So we're on a mission, us and other value advisors and exit planners are on a mission to change those numbers. It should be only about 3% that don't successfully sell, because we're talking about trillions of dollars in value that's going to disappear, go away, if you can't exit your business, either handing the baton off to the next generation, key employees, a third-party competitor, private equity, whoever your exit might be, because if there's not value there, it'll eventually crumble and just fade away.
And I think about the impact generational wealth, right? We talk to business owners all the time who express to us in different ways their desire to create and protect that generational wealth for their family and others to come, for the communities that they're a part of, for the clients that they serve. What happens if these steps aren't taken? It's pretty harsh, and it's unfortunate, and it's in many cases unnecessary, because the issues that we talk about on this podcast that are kind of the bigger ones that we tend to see more often in businesses are fixable in so many cases.
Here, the thing about handing the business off to the next generation, assuming your kids, nieces, nephews, somebody involved in the business want to take over the business, you assume, you could assume the risk of financing, because in many cases you don't sell it outright and get a lump sum harvest of equity and you're on your business. And if they crash the business, bums you out a little bit, but you're financially okay. But you're going to be the bank, and there's not spreading the risk. The risk is on you. So it would be better to have the systems and processes set up to not only make sure they have the greatest track record to run on, systems and processes and everything laid out there, but also to make sure you de-risk your situation to make sure you get your money. Right? Because there'd be nothing worse, I think, than handing it off to your kids and something happens in the business. They're not able, or they change their mind. They don't have skin in the game, right? It might make the holiday dinners a little warped if they walk away from the business. But what happens in 2 or 3 years if you have to step in? And can you step back in? So make it important, more valuable if you're selling it to a third party, private equity competitor, whatever, but also to give your kids the best option for success going forward. And I know that's important to most dads and moms out there that own businesses that want to hand it off to the kids, grandkids, whoever it might be.
Absolutely. So again, there's a big difference between focusing on revenue, focusing on your income, and truly focusing on the value of the business and understanding how everything that you do, everything your team does in the business should be driving that business forward, the value of that business further. And so if you're wanting to find out what the value drivers for your specific business situation look like, what are the things that you need to be focusing on in order to get more of that best in class type situation where we're talking about the value and the multiple that you could get for it, let's connect you with the right value advisor. See where we can help you grow that enterprise value, understand what your freedom point is, create the clarity that you, your team, your entire business needs in order to accomplish the things that you're trying to accomplish. Go to scaletosell.com/discovery, scaletosell.com/discovery, or click the link in the show notes below. We would love to be able to connect you with the right team member to be able to help you get clarity, just like the example that we gave of understanding, maybe there's that realization of, okay, I had no idea what my business was actually worth. But here's the things that we're going to do in order to fix it and to get back on track where we need it to be. That's exactly why we're having these conversations, to be able to do that, to help you, to help your businesses and the generations to come, the families that are going to be impacted by the decisions we make today.
It takes about 13 or 15 minutes to get that started on that appraisal. It's really not that much to get started.
Yep. Again, scaletosell.com/discovery. Let us know that you'd like to talk to a value advisor and we'll get you connected. Until next time, keep scaling.